Live from his luxury penthouse apartment in London's glittering East End, Dean Lerner, club owner, entrepreneur and publisher of high-class gentlemen's magazines, invites you to join him for an exclusive man-to-man. Please welcome Mr. Dean Lerner.
Thank you so much. 1,000 thank yous. And welcome to Man to Man. My name is Dean Lerner, and I guess you could say I'm a one-man brand. I've got a club called Dino's, a restaurant called Chez Dino's, an erotic comic called The Dino, and a men's magazine called Jigglers. And that was originally called Dino's Jigglers, but the image it conjured up was, at best, harrowing. Wasn't it, Satu? Yeah. Now, this show is an attempt to bring back some refinement to modern television, a medium that's become so depraved, so venal, that I'm almost ashamed to be associated with it. And I've worked in skin. In short, you can sum up the credos of Man to Man in one word: class. What is class? Well, it's impossible to define, despite what dictionaries would have us believe. But certain images can conjure up its essence: jumbo prawns, ankle bracelets, and dimmer switches in the toilet. And my special guest this evening is pure class. He's the candelabra of toilet lighting, if you will. Now, as many of you will know, I've had a long-standing love of motor racing, and back in the 80s, I even had my own team called the Dean Team. Perhaps you've heard of it, or perhaps you haven't. Those are the two options. The point is, tonight's VIP visitor was the most famous driver the Dean Team ever had, but you might know him better now as a spokesman for a major hair restoral company.
Having lived life in the fast lane for well over a decade, it's no surprise to me that my back has begun to fall out. But with Back Studio's revolutionary new hair restoral treatment, my back, sack, crack and shoulders have been restored to their bushy best in just under 3 years. Has it changed my life? You betcha. Back in business.
Please welcome the 4 times former Formula 5 world champion, Steve the Accelerator Pising, with one S.
Thank you, Dean.
Whoa, one second. OK.
Thank you, Dean. I'm over the moon to be here, and can I say that's an hilarious start to the proceedings, albeit one that is technically inaccurate. The checkered flag usually denotes the close of a race, whereas the start of a race is usually signified by a sequence of coloured lights flashing red, red, green, then out. But thank you, and thank you also for the correct pronunciation of my surname. So many people over the years have pronounced it Pising or Pising. It's not, it's Pissing. Said it once, and I'll say it again. Pissing is my name, and I'm proud to be a Pissing, and that's the end of it.
Agreed.
That's the end of it, Dean.
Sure. Now, some time back, your racing career was cut tragically short by a horrendous car accident, of which more in the Junus, of course, which means that a number of our younger viewers may not know that you were once 4 times Formula 5 world champion. Now, forgive me for blowing smoke up my own trumpet, but all of those wins were with my team, the Dean Team.
That's right, Dean, and I'd like to say that with you by my side, I was living the Dean.
Well, that's both funny and kind. But tell me, Steve, what was it like to drive a Formula 5 car? What made it so exciting?
Well, I'd have to say the speed.
The speed.
The sheer speed, Dean. There was nothing else like it. It was better than sex. Well, certainly better than any sex I've ever had. The feeling of speed was just indescribable.
All right. So what was it like?
As I say, it's indescribable.
try describing it.
Really good.
Now, together we won a lot of races, but what for you was your finest moment?
Well, I'd have to say probably Brands Hatch 85. I was leading solidly for 15 laps. Then on lap 16, I was taken by Henrik Gröger, the fiery Sri Lankan. I got angry, I put my foot down, I did this, and I was back on pole.
And that was the greatest moment of your life?
Yes, it was. I mean, there was a moment immediately prior to that where I'd done this. And that was pretty special. I mean, I remember thinking that's probably my greatest moment. But then that moment led to this, which blew the previous moment right out of the park. In fact, the only thing that's come close since is when I first saw the trailer to Troy.
It's a very dangerous sport, isn't it?
Well, I've got no skin left on my legs anymore. They look like 2 tubes of pate. In fact, one dermatologist said I'm literally down to my last layer of skin, so I can't wash with a flannel anymore. I have to use wet wipes from Kentucky Fried Chicken. And that's the only brand my skin will take. So if I ever want to spruce up, it's a trip to the Colonel.
Well, it's very difficult to find a good quality wet wipe in any case, because I took Satu to the Ivy recently, and I asked for a wet wipe, and they said, we don't do wet wipes. I said, the fuck you don't do wet wipes? I'm paying £2 a head and you don't do fucking wet wipes. They said, no, we don't. I said, well, send out for a wet wipe. I've got shrimp all over my hands. I stink. I need a wet wipe. And so in the end, they had to bite some over from Chicken Cottage, who do a very good wet wipe, and gratis, I may add. But I have to say, I think the Ivy were a little bit embarrassed by the whole thing, because I'd been in there 2 weeks back, and they didn't have any sporks. Back to you, Steve. You have borne all your innumerable chafings with considerable courage, and I think that's what the British public love so much about you. It's your character.
Well, it's not for no reason, Dean, that I've been voted Sports Personality of the Year 3 times running.
Sure, and that's a very difficult competition to win, because you were up against some very witty sportsmen, including, I think, John Parrott.
Well, as I said on the night, I've had the ride of my life in this career, but the road to this particular trophy has been the bumpiest.
That is priceless. Lovely. And you actually wrote that joke yourself, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It took about a week, but I was very pleased with the result, and I think it still holds up well today.
Yeah, I think I agree. And it was that speech, and in particular that joke, if I may be so bold, that led to the tide of pissing mania that swept the country. You were everywhere, weren't you? There were pissing T-shirts, pissing mugs, pissing posters, and there was even the pissing single, wasn't there?
That's right. Driving me crazy.
Driving me crazy, that's right. How did it go? Yeah, you're driving me crazy, take your foot off the gas. I'm all tired out, I've got my head on the dash. We need to put the brakes on or we'll skid off the tracks. We've been slow out the grids, now I want you back. You're driving me crazy. Why don't you give it a rest? Do what Bunny Rabbit? Pardon? No, that's Chas and Dave. That's Chas and Dave.
Well, to be fair, I think we ripped it off them.
Yeah, sure. I suppose the culmination of this avalanche of merchandise was your video in which you documented your hopes, your dreams and your plans for the future when you were literally at the top of your game. So let's have a look at pissing in the driving seat.
Hi, I'm Steve Pissing, and this is Pissing in the Driving Seat.
In this home video cassette, Steve Pissing will reveal what drives him, his racy views on the motor business, keep us on track with his private life, and candidly share his hopes for the future while also putting the brakes on some rumours about his imminent retirement. Steve Pissing is one of Formula 5's great personalities. 3 times UK champion, with an historic 47 trophies to his name, he is known to other drivers and his fans alike as the Accelerator.
Well, I'm known as the Accelerator, I suppose because in my motor racing career I've often had to accelerate in order to overtake rival drivers, so I suppose it's a reference to that.
A devoted husband to his wife Marie, he runs a successful business with his brother, Barry Pissing. He also owns a camel and has recently opened a camel refuge in his hometown of Folkestone, Kent.
I own a camel, I love camels, I adore camels, I'm camel crazy. Camels have great stamina, they look good, like me they go a hell of a long way on one tank, and above all they're honest. And let me say this to you now, if only everyone was as honest as a camel, the world would be a much better place in my opinion.
What does Steve feel about the recent fraud and manslaughter allegations made against Dean Lerner and Dean Machine Motors? Do these have a bearing on his future plans?
I have the utmost respect for Dean Lerner. I think he does a wonderful job, often in very difficult circumstances. Granted, he flew off the handle somewhat during his recent courtroom appearance, but I've said this once and I'll say it again. As far as I'm concerned, Dean's always been straight with me. I've always been straight with him. I'll be completely straight with the judge when I'm called to testify at Dean's trial next month. Dean knows that. Dean respects that. I've got nothing to hide, Dean's got nothing to hide, the Dean team's got nothing to hide.
So we leave Steve Pissing at a crossroads in his career. But one thing's for certain, this won't be the last chapter in the Pissing story.
Nice. Very nice to see that.
But shortly after that video, you indeed announced you were leaving my team, the Dean team.
Yes.
Steve left the Dean team with my blessing. I wished you the very best. But I warned you at the time that if you left me, things would not turn out well for you. And I was right, wasn't I?
True, it was an uncanny prediction, Dean, because in my first race with my new team, I had a terrible crash that effectively put the brakes on my entire career.
Which is ironic, because it was your brakes that failed during that race.
It's one of those things you just have to live with, Dean. I don't know how that brake cable became severed in 18 different places.
It's a mystery.
Same I do.
Now, the injuries you received were extensive. I mean, no one was more surprised than me when you pulled through.
Well, it was a horrific crash, Dean. I remember it like it was yesterday. The brakes failed, I hit the curb, the car flipped, I went into a roll, slid on some oil, skidded into a tyre wall, bounced over the control tower onto a garage roof, catapulted sideways into a tree, dropped down into the path of a speeding van, ricocheted back up into the tree, landed bonnet down in a skip, the petrol tank blew, the car exploded, the tree fell on the car, and at that point I became worried I might not make it. My seat caught fire, the skip blew up, I started hearing gunshots. Then a pickup truck dumped 15 gallons of wet cement on top of me. When I was chiselled out of the wreckage, my pelvis was shattered, one arse cheek was hanging loose, the top of my head was leaking, and my spine had become severely compressed.
Right. By how much?
I was 3'5", Dean. But lucky for me, they managed to surgically stretch me back to something approximating my original height over a period of 7 years.
Right. Were you ever afraid that you were going to die?
Well, I did die, Dean. I was rushing down a tunnel towards a very bright light at the other end. I was going maybe 200, 220 mph, popped out the other end and I saw the face of God.
And what did he look like?
A little bit like Uncle Albert from Only Fools and Horses.
That's how I imagine him to look like. I guess he didn't do that a lot, though.
Not that I noticed, but heaven was like a huge car parts depot, gleaming white and stocked to the gills with every form of car part or car part accessory you could wish for. And I remember thinking, if I ever come through this, I'm going to open up a similar operation in Folkestone or maybe Dover. And God said to me, Steve, that's a great idea. There's a lot of passing trade opening up in Folkestone, what with the channel nearing completion and increasing reinvestment throughout the area. And you've already built up good brand loyalty with pissing parts and pissing oil. So we talked for about an hour about the motor parts trade, and we found a lot of our views on how to trade in stock were very similar.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you there, Steve. I had no idea that answer would be so long. We have to go to a commercial break. Please come back for what I promise will be a snappier second half. Welcome back to Man to Man with Dean Lerner. I'm about to recommence talking to former Formula 5 world champion Steve Pissing now. After the crash that ended your motor racing career, you returned to domestic life. How did you find that?
Since my retirement, my wife Marie and I have been trying for a baby, but with no joy at all. And it's been devastating for me, Dean, because, as you know, I want to continue the Pissing name. It's an old Anglo-Saxon name, and regrettably, it's dying out.
And I understand, as yet, your marriage has been without issue.
You got it in one, Dean. Unfortunately, the kind of temperatures generated in the driving seat during an average Formula 5 race are roughly the equivalent of a Breville toaster. So, sadly, over the years, the tip of my shaft has become heat-sealed. Bit like the corners of a toasted sandwich.
Could you not try siphoning off some sperms?
I'd love to, Dean, but the trouble is, after 10 years on the track with my testes sizzling on a white-hot engine, everything down there's long since curdled.
Well, I've got the opposite problem. I mean, I just found out this week that I've got another son, which is not ideal. But then again, you can't argue with the DNA test. Not for long. Sorry. I digress. Couldn't you adopt?
No, I couldn't adopt. Apparently, calling a child pissing in this day and age constitutes a form of child abuse. I mean, not to harp on about it, but even my wife Marie won't take my name. And I've said to her, I've pleaded, please, Marie, please take it as a middle name. But she won't. She won't, because her surname's Blood.
Let's move on. Now, after the crash that you should not have survived, you went full-time into the parts business, didn't you?
That's right. I love the parts business, and I get the same kick from selling a wheel component or a splash shield as I did crossing the finishing line, would you believe?
I believe you, Steve. And you ran that business with your brother Barry, and I believe we've got a picture of him, which we can see now. There he is.
Yeah, that's my brother Barry. He's my younger brother. Just sitting here thinking about him makes my blood boil.
Cain and Abel, Romulus and Remus, and now Steve and Barry. Why can't brothers get on?
I don't know, Dean. I love him like a brother, but at the same time, I hate him so much I could spit. And I don't even approve of spitting, as you know.
Actually, I'll tell you who's a terrible one for spitting. He's a real gobber. And that's Des Lynam. When he's on Countdown, they actually have to put a spittoon under his desk. That's true. That is true. He won't tell you. That's why he's got the moustache. It's to soak it up, basically. So what did Barry do?
What didn't he do?
Let's start off with what he did do, because that was a long first half.
OK. Well, things began one day when we'd been delivered an extra wiper blade from our supplier by mistake, and Barry suggested we pocket the profit and keep our heads low for a week. And I said, Barry, I don't want to live like a fugitive for the rest of my life. I can't do business like that. Then, not long after that, he began to turn up late for work. He'd roll up to the depot at about 7:30 when I'd been there since 5, and I'd say, Jesus, Barry, what time do you call this? Half the day's gone. And he'd just look at me, flip the bird and say, climb it, Tarzan. Then I noticed he started to take the van home at weekends, and when it came back on Monday morning, it smelled distinctly of midnight sin. And the worst thing was he wouldn't do up his top button on his shirt, which from a customer's point of view is like being kicked in the balls.
And you were so ill with stress you had to take 5 months off work, didn't you?
That's right, but that's where all my back hair fell out. And that's when I came back to you, the only man in the world I could trust, and very honourably and for £50 you took the business off my hands and a whole heap of worry from my shoulders.
And these are exciting times for the business because we have a new reality show where you and I have to find a new trainee to oversee the future growth of pitting parts. So let's have a look at The Learner. Good morning, everyone. OK, let's cut straight to it, shall we? You lot are going to be competing against one another to become the new night security guard at my Woking depot. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, as well as the obvious cachet that such a position affords. The lucky appointee will receive an annual salary of $9.5K and personalised name badge. Now, helping me choose my learner security guard will be my 2 trusted advisors. To my right, Mr. Steve Pising. Steve heads up the car parts depot here, and as such, over the next few weeks, will be my eyes, ears, throat, and balls. To my left is my financial advisor. Now, I'm going to split you up into 2 groups, shirts and skirt. Shirts, you can do stock taking with Steve here, and skirt, what's your name, my love?
Martine.
Martine, my darling, you can soap down the Jag with me and Mary Lou.
Water pumps, that's a DI2519 and a DI2517. OK?
Yeah.
Can you see them? There they are, there they are. What's the quantity?
2.
What's the quantity?
2.
What's the quantity? Look. There you go. Quantity 1. Jot it down. Exhaust paste power cans. Where are they? Wrong, that's a water pump. Because if they come too far on the shelves, they can fall and it's against health and safety. If this juts out too far and I'm walking along here, bang, and I'm out. OK, so just be very, very careful. Bring it up to the edge, but no further. And don't push it all the way back because then you might miss one walking through, OK? Because I'll walk past, go, where is it, and I've gone past it. It's literally up to that edge. That's why they were built this length. OK, that's why the width is right. It's just right for the job. It's just right for the job. Did you stack these?
Yes.
Yeah, they're overstacked. OK, if you look, come here. If you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, there's 10. I mean, I know what you've done. You put 10 on thinking, well, 10's a nice even number. But they should only ever go to at least to 7. Or, you know, 7 or less, really.
Right.
Because if I walk along here and I'm crouching and I'm walking through and they drop off, I mean, I know they're not heavy, but enough of them could blind me. Does anyone here want a cup of tea?
No.
Cup of tea?
No, they don't. They're fine.
Cup of tea?
They're fine.
OK.
Can you send them in, please? OK, now I've listened to the advice of Steve and Mary Lou, but now I need you to convince me, OK? You, what have you got to say for yourself?
Your employee said I did good.
Pardon me?
I was great.
You were great. Suddenly
Yeah, man,
great.
I did it good.
He did it good. He did it good. Did he did it good, Steve?
He did.
I caught someone like you key my car. Do you know what happened to him?
What?
He carried his leg home. It's all a joke to these fellas. What about you? How many GCSEs have you got?
I have 2 GCSEs.
I don't like eggheads, OK? So I've got a problem with you. Why should I keep you on?
Well, like the guy said before, I think I've done my task to my best ability.
Right. What's your best ability? That of the hog? What have you got to say in your defence?
I think Steve and I make a pretty good team.
So you're Torval and Dean suddenly, are you? Skating together in sync?
It was discussed.
What, Torval and Dean?
Us going skating.
What about you, then?
I think you're a good employee for you.
For me?
Yeah.
Right. Do you know what I think you are? I think you're a fucking toilet. I'm not a team. How did you get off?
I don't know.
Don't know. OK. This is very tough. This is very tough indeed. A lot of conflicting testimony. It is my decision. But I've made it. And I'm going to cut all of you loose, except Martine. There's a great episode coming up later where Satu and Martine have a catfight on a bouncy castle, so watch out for that. All that remains for me to do is to thank once again my super guest, Steve Pising, for talking to me, man to man, and to thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much. When you're done, I'll get a hose. Get a hose. You might get sprinkled a bit. Don't give me that look, Steve.
That car's too clean, Dean.
It's my decision, Steve.
Your decision.
It is my decision. And the car is the level of cleanness that I'd like. Tonight might be a late one, so you'd best call your mother, because I doubt you'll be back before 11:30.
Oh.
Okay.